Warning. The following video contained descriptions of criminal encounters, violence, and strong language. Viewer discretion is advised. This happened several years ago. I was home alone one evening when I heard a knock at the back door. This confused me, as no one ever used that door. My husband and I lived in a fourplex at the time, and all of the units had a back door at the top of a narrow staircase. These doors were a little inconvenient to access, as you'd have to go around the building and up the narrow stairs, as opposed to the wider main entrance at the front. It didn't make sense to use the back entrance, and I couldn't think of anyone who would go to that door to visit. As I approached the back door, I saw two tall men in the window, standing at the door. A chill went down my spine. I did not feel safe opening the door, so I called out, "Hello." One of the men tapped on the window. "Yes, hello. May we come in? We are from the cable company." At the time, my husband and I had cable TV network but did not have any issues with it. I replied, "We're not having any issues with it. Is there a problem?" "Ma'am," the man said, "can we come in? We're servicing the area and it's important we look at your cable." I shook my head. "We're not having any issues," I repeated, "so there's no need to stop by." "Ma'am, we are visiting every resident. Let us in so we can do our job." I noticed the man grabbed the doorknob and he was trying to open the locked door. I slowly grabbed a knife from our knife block and held it at my chest. "We're not having any issues," I repeated, trying not to convey shakiness of my voice, "so you don't need to be here." The two figures appeared to shuffle and then straighten. "Ma'am, let us in. We're on a deadline and need to do our job." I glanced at the clock, gauging when my husband would arrive home from work. I gripped the knife tighter. Ma'am. I saw him try the doorknob again. I closed my eyes and felt overwhelming gratitude of always locking my doors. Just then, a thought came to the forefront of my mind. "I'm sorry I can't help you. Could I please get your names and badge numbers? I can give your supervisor a call to let them know our cable is fine." I heard another shuffle, and one of the men replied, "No need to, ma'am. We're sorry we wasted your time." With that, both of the men exited the staircase and disappeared into the night. Shaken up, I held the knife tight and tried to get my bearings. I remember making a mental note to call the cable company or the police, but my hands were shaking so badly, I couldn't hold my phone. With the knife still grasped to my chest and the phone falling out of my other hand, I sank to the floor and cried. When my husband returned home, I told him what had happened. I was still very shaken up and had started crying again after he came home. He immediately called the cable company and spoke to a representative who informed us that no one from their company was out on assignment in our area. The next day, we asked our neighbors if they had a visit from the company. No one had. I live in a small city, and recently, there has been a series of armed robberies happening in and around the area. It made me worry about walking alone at night, so I have found myself home at night more often than usual. It's not the worst, but I dislike having this feeling of unease, so what I do is I manage and make do. One night, my dad and his girlfriend were invited out to a party, meaning I had the whole house to myself. I pretty much had the evening planned out. Watch some episodes from my favorite soap opera, then switch it over to some classic horror films. I said bye to them as they were leaving and then quickly loaded up the TV. It was not long after I had started up the horror movie that I heard a knock at the door. It wasn't a regular knocking. If my TV had been any louder, I probably wouldn't have been able to hear it. Thinking it was nothing at first, I went over to the door without pausing the movie just to confirm. But to my surprise, there was someone at the door. I opened the door and there stood a slim man. Looked to be in his mid-30s, and that's all I can pretty much say. I'm not the best when it comes to describing people, and I didn't really go out of my way to analyze him at that moment. I couldn't even tell you if his jacket was gray or black. The man said he represented a security company and was going around my area to offer his company's services. He asked if the owner of the house was home, to which I told him no, and that he would not be home until late. He then began giving me some quick information about his company. That it was the only one that was locally funded, that it's already being used in several homes on my street, and that it's smart device friendly. He even showed me a laminated piece of paper that displayed all the different devices that could work with the security system. I told him that we weren't interested in having a security system at this time. He proceeded to ask me if my family leaves the house for long trips, which would be a great reason to get the security system. Looking back now, this was a huge red flag, but I answered honestly that the house was almost never empty and that we never really went on trips. I also added that he could speak to my dad tomorrow if he was coming back. He told me his team would be leaving to another city tomorrow, thanked me for my time, then left. I went back to my movie and pretty much forgot about the visitor. Movie finishes, and I decide to check my social media. Near the top of my feed is a shared post that caught my eye immediately. What I read next made me completely freeze up. It was from a woman who had also talked to a representative from the exact security company I had been advertised. This guy knocked on her door softly too, which immediately caught my attention. She noted how the guy never gave his name of business card, something I didn't even realize happened for me until I thought back. Overall, she was very suspicious of the guy, so she asked he wait outside as she got some pen and paper to write down his phone number. When she returned, he was gone. The next door neighbor told her that they saw the man running down the road and into an alley. But the biggest fact this woman dropped. She contacted the security company, it does actually exist, and they told her that they didn't send anyone out to the city to go door to door. This shared post is blowing up and it seems that it occurred to a lot more people than just me. Some people even showed video from their security cameras of these employees. There's definitely more than one person pretending to work for this company, one even being a woman, and a lot of strange activity being reported. One person going into the backyard without permission, another person standing in front of the house like they're scoping it out. Knowing all of this now, it makes the entire encounter with that guy at my door terrifying. Was he scoping my house too? Would he have tried something if I didn't answer? I also wonder, was he hesitant to try anything because I didn't pause my movie? For all he knew, I could have had a friend over. Luckily nothing serious happened for the rest of the night, but I will be extremely cautious from now on. If there's one thing I would advise, be suspicious of anyone you don't know that comes to your house. Just because someone says they work for a company doesn't make it true. You don't know who they are or what they might actually want from you. I live in a city that is relatively safe place to be, but occasionally you'll get a handful of gang members, prostitutes, and drug-addicted street dwellers. I was a freshman in high school when this happened. It was daytime, my parents were out and I was home alone playing video games and trying to make the best out of having the whole house to myself. After some time I heard the doorbell ring. I got up to check who's at the door by looking through the eye scope thing on the door, but I didn't get a good view, so I peeked through a window that looks onto the front porch area. There, I saw 3 early mid-20-year-old black men dressed formally in a suit and tie. I thought that they were salesmen or people trying to spread the gospel. Either way, I didn't want to deal with it, so I quietly went back to my video game, trying to give off the impression that there wasn't anybody home. After a few minutes, the doorbell rang again. I paused the game and went to see who it was. Same suited sellers. I got irritated from this, but I didn't want to interact with some strangers, especially when I was home alone, so I ignored them again and started to walk towards the living room to continue my game. As I was walking back, I heard that someone was trying to force open the side door. I froze in absolute terror and confusion. I was trying to make a decision about what to do, but the fear was getting the best of me. Somehow I grabbed the phone and called 911. I was in middle of the call when I heard the side gate flip open. I became certain that the trouble was on the way. At that point, I made an impulsive panic decision to hide inside the shower and close the curtain. Stupid me didn't even close the bathroom door. It remained cracked open. While I was in the shower scared out of my wits and talking to the operator, the backyard glass door shattered open. After that I heard yelling and fast walking around the whole house. I also heard cabinets opening, drawers being ransacked, and footsteps running to and fro across the bathroom where I was hiding. It looked like they were robbers, and they were looking for anything valuable to steal. The true horror began when one of the robbers entered the bathroom to check for valuable stuff to steal. At that time it felt like my soul had left my body. He was searching under the sink inches away from where I was hiding. I was so scared of making any sound that I put the receiving end of the telephone in my mouth as an attempt to muffle out the sound of the speaking emergency operator. Around this time, I've heard police sirens and the suited robbers fled back outside into the backyard and hopped fences into neighbors' yards in a desperate attempt to flee. They then walked out onto the street a few houses down from my house, trying to act as normal as they can, thinking that the police will doubtfully suspect people in suits as being break-in robbers. Too bad for them that I saw them before they came in and told the operator their full description including what they were wearing. They were apprehended and I was left to live with this horribly close encounter with unknown danger.